We want to demonstrate an epoxy-based product today. This one's fairly new in the marketplace. It uses the same technology that they use in solid surface countertops. We're using an epoxy as the binder, so it's a little bit different than solid surface countertops, but the look is about the same. Now, because this is epoxy based, our epoxies are 100% solids. It's compliant with FDA rules and regulations, so kitchens, cafeterias, food processing plants, things like that. It is extremely durable and solvent resistant, so gasoline isn't going to touch it, brake fluid isn't going to bubble it up. Very, very tough stuff. But this is going to a beautiful look. This is going to give you a high-end look. It's going to retail at the high end of epoxy floorings or resinous floorings. So you are not going to sell this against a vinyl flake system or pigmented epoxy. What this is going against is terrazzo, which is $50 or $60 a square foot installed, or polished concrete overlays. With this product, you don't need $250 million in equipment to load it down. You need a mixer and a gauge rake, or a notch rake, and that's about it. Typically, the prep is going to be the same for this as it would be any other resinous flooring system, right? You want a CSP, a profile about a number 2 or 3. You want to do a moisture test or a humidity test to make sure that the slab is going to be dry enough that the epoxy doesn't delaminate. If you find out that your humidity is too high, and for this product we're looking, and I don't expect you to remember all this, but as far as vapor transmission, less than 3 pounds per 1,000 square feet over 24 hours. No one's going to remember that, you don't have to. Less than 75% humidity. If it is more than that in your slab after you test it, there is moisture mitigation systems that you could use. That would be your primer. So your slab, you've tested it, moisture's fine, it's nice and low. You've cleaned it, you've scarified it or sanded it to give it that CSP, that concrete surface profile of a number 2 or 3. And now we're ready to do the system. You want that pigmented primer for 2 reasons. Number 1, we want a nice solid color base so that you don't see any ghosting through of light and dark patches or any repair work that you've done. The primer will also prevent your body coat, what we're going to actually be showing you today. It'll prevent any outgassing. We all know epoxy is fairly viscous, kind of thick, and as it works its way into the pores and capillaries, it displaces the air. The air comes up and creates little bubbles and little pinholes. So by having it pigmented, either a white or a light gray, typically, if you're using one of the darker colors like a garnet or a cosmos, then you can go with a dark color matching or complementary epoxy color. And that's basically it. So the epoxy system itself, we have 3-gallon kit of epoxy. Comes in a 5-gallon bucket. You lift that top off, here is a plastic tray that's holding a gallon of cure. You pop that tray out and you have 2 gallons of resin just floating around. So that 5-gallon bucket becomes your mixing vessel. Mix part A and part B for a minimum of 3 minutes. We want to make sure it's thoroughly mixed. Make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottoms of the bucket as you do that.
This stuff comes in a kit. That kit is the resin, and then it's also the powder. The powder is really special. It's what helps the material consolidate and self-level. This is a self-leveling, self-healing epoxy. So what that means is you can dump a 5-gallon bucket in the middle of the floor and it'll completely level itself, right? No, that doesn't work that way. You got to push it around. You got to get it at the right thickness. You got to move it to the corners. You got to manipulate it to get the right quantity of material down, and then it will self-heal. It'll finish itself smooth. Why are we dealing with primers? So just a little bit of education on that. When it ever comes to surface preparation, you got to follow what I call the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps of preparation. And what are the 4 Ps of preparation? We're looking for profile, which means this material needs to grab onto something. When it dries, when this material dries, it's going to pull upward during the drying process, and it needs a tooth. It needs something to grab onto. Okay, so like Rich was saying, there's different ratings for that, and this is particular. You want like a concrete preparation level of 3. And what does that equate to? In terms of a machinery, Rich, what does the 3 relate to in terms of machinery?
You're looking at either sanding, scarifying, heat blasting, track blasting.
Yeah, this preparation would be best if we use some sort of shot blasting equipment that's going to throw that metal bead down on the concrete and take the top layer of that concrete off, or a grinder that's going to be like a 50 grit diamond that's going to cut into the concrete surface and open that surface up. But we're looking for a really good tooth to bite to, so that we can then assure that we're getting a good profile. Now, the second P that we have to focus on when it comes to prep is porosity. Something can have a profile, but it can be pretty dense. Think about, for example, flamed granite. It's got a profile to it, but if you dump water on flamed granite, it doesn't soak in very easy. It's not very porous, right? So we need porosity, we need profile, and then we also need to think about the other P, which is called pH. pH is your alkalinity or your moisture content in the surface. And Rich talked a little bit about that too. Make sure you don't put this product down on a surface that's got a lot of moisture. Why? That's because if there's moisture, there's going to be alkaline pH. And if there's alkaline pH, that's going to work against you when it comes to your bond and when it comes to the durability of your material. So you need to make sure you manage that pH or that moisture. And then we have our last P of the surface preparation, and that's what? It's the primer. The primer has a lot of different uses. We might have an area of the surface that's a little bit more porous and another area that's a little bit less porous, and our material can be evened out. Our surface can be evened out with a primer. Also, a primer helps to hide any imperfections in the color below. If I have a concrete surface and one of the concretes is a dark gray and the other is a light gray, and I put a white material over it, you will get a different color in the final product. So that primer can help aesthetically hide the imperfections of the slab below. Another element that a primer helps with is it really helps you when it comes to the moisture issue, the moisture vapor issue. You might find that your surface, you need to mitigate or to stop or to push down that moisture that's coming through, and a primer chosen correctly can help control and mitigate that moisture. So what's the purpose of the spike roller? Anybody here used a spike roller in the past? Porcupine roller in the past? This is just to help break surface tension. Throw a leaf on top of water and a leaf will sit, right? I always wondered how those little bugs could skitter across the top of the water. It's because the liquids have a tension. They have a surface tension, and we need to break that surface tension. And sometimes it's easy to break that surface tension with a popping it, like you'd pop a bubble, right? That's how a bubble works. You got that surface tension. So we need to break surface tension, and that spike roller will help you to break surface tension.